I have told this story maybe 4 times in my life. Each time, somebody at the table stops drinking. They put the cup down. They look at me like I'm about to lie, because everybody knows the rule, and everybody assumes I'm going to dress it up to sound braver than it was. I'm not going to do that. I was a coward that day. I'm telling you up front so you don't waste your time wondering when I'll become the hero. I never do. The hero of this story isn't even me. It isn't the captain either, though for a long time I thought it would be him, because he was the strongest thing I had ever stood next to. His name was Korath. Korath of the Drathmer, though nobody used the full name to his face unless they wanted to lose teeth. The bounty boards in 9 systems just called him the Unbold. He had been hunting for 240 cycles, and in all that time nothing had ever made him spill his own blood. Not a Varan war spider. Not the carnivore reefs of Holland Deep. Not the thing in the ice on Caldris that ate a whole survey team and that he brought back in pieces, frozen, for proof. 240 cycles, not one drop. That was the kind of thing you held onto when you worked for him. You told yourself, nothing touches Korath, so nothing touches me. I want you to remember that I believed it, because by the end of this I didn't. Let me set it for you properly, because if you don't see the place, you won't understand why we went there at all. We were drifting the outer Tash. That's the frontier past the trade lanes, past the relay buoys, out where the maps just say unsurveyed and the old captains draw little marks that mean don't. The Tash is a graveyard of stars. Long time ago there was a war out there, the kind nobody won, and what's left is wreckage. Dead fleets the size of cities just floating. Whole battle lines that stopped firing and never moved again. People go there to salvage. People go there to hide. And people go there to die, mostly the first 2 kinds who get unlucky. Our ship was the HFY. In the old tongue that means something like the one that comes after. Korath thought that was funny. The ship was black mostly, with these long sensor spines that made it look like something that should be at the bottom of an ocean instead of out in the black. Inside it smelled like ozone and old meat. He kept trophies. I won't describe them. You wouldn't sleep. There were 11 of us in the crew. Different species, different reasons. Most of them I won't talk about because they're dead now and they earned their quiet. But I'll tell you about me. My name is Vale. My people are called the Sif. We're small. I come up to about a tall human's chest, and humans are not tall, as you'll find out. We're soft. We come from a low-gravity world with thin air and no predators worth the word, which means we are excellent at 2 things: doing math very fast and being afraid in advance. I was the navigator, the one who plotted the jumps, who read the dark, who told the captain where the safe water was. On a hunting ship, the navigator is the least dangerous person on board, and everyone knows it, and they let you live precisely because you're useless in a fight, and therefore not a threat to anybody's standing. I had been on the HFY for 19 cycles. I had watched Korath kill more things than I can count. I had never, not once, seen him afraid. I want to be very clear about that, because the whole story is really just about the first time. The job came in on a tight beam, encrypted, from a broker we'd worked with before. A Kelmery, slick voice, the kind of being who smiles with too many parts of his mouth. He had a bounty, high value, a defector, he said. Someone who had stolen something from a Syndicate 3 systems back and run for the Tash to disappear into the wreckage. 1 target, the broker said. Alone, no ship of their own anymore, crashed it into the graveyard. We tracked the beacon to a dead carrier called the Mournful. They're hiding in it. Smart, hiding in a thing that big. But you, Captain, you find people in big, dark places. It's what you do. Korath listened with his eyes half closed. He did that. People mistook it for boredom. It was the opposite. It was the way a deep-water thing closes its eyes right before it strikes, so the flash of motion doesn't give it away. Species, Korath said, 1 word. The broker's smile flickered. I caught it on the comm feed and I logged it, the way I logged everything, because numbers and details were the only useful thing I had. Does it matter? The broker said. It always matters, Korath said. What hunts a thing depends on what the thing is. Species. There was a pause, half a second. On a sensor read, half a second is a scream. Unknown, the broker said. Records were wiped, could be anything. The pay accounts for the inconvenience. And he named a number. It was a stupid number. It was the kind of number you only offer when you are very sure the person you're sending isn't coming back, and you'd rather they didn't, because if they came back they might ask why the number was so big. I should have said something then. I want that on the record too. I saw the half-second. I heard the wiped records. I felt the whole shape of it land wrong in my stomach, the way bad math lands wrong when the sum comes out clean but you know in your gut a digit got dropped somewhere. I said nothing. Korath took the job. Of course he took the job. He hadn't bled in 240 cycles. What was there to be careful about? We jumped to the Tash, and it took us 3 days at sublight to reach the Mournful. I remember those 3 days because they were the last normal days, and you never know which days those are until later. The crew did what the crew did. Atresh, the big Drathmer second, same species as Korath, younger, hungrier, sharpened things. The Varen twins argued about a card game. Old Mott, our engineer, a creature with too many hands and not enough patience, swore at the reactor in 4 languages, and I sat at the nav station and watched the graveyard come up out of the dark. You don't really understand scale until you fly through a dead war. The Mournful wasn't a ship. It was a landscape, a carrier from the old conflict, easily 40 kilometers, hanging dead in the black with its spine broken in 2 places so it sagged like a body that had given up. Most of its hull was peeled open. You could see straight into it, corridors, decks, hangars big enough to lose our whole ship inside. Its running lights were dead. There was no power signature at all except one. One faint thing, deep inside. A heat bloom small, the size of a single living body and a small fire. That was the target, hiding in the dark in a corpse the size of a mountain, keeping warm. I plotted us an approach into one of the torn-open hangars. Korath came and stood behind me while I did it. He didn't usually do that. He smelled like cold iron and he was very, very still. "You're nervous," he said. "I'm always nervous, Captain," I said. "It's what you keep me for." He almost laughed, almost. "The broker lied about something," he said. "It wasn't a question." "The species," I said before I could stop myself. "Records aren't wiped in a syndicate, they're sold. If they hid the species, it's because the species changes the price, and the price already changed, upward." He was quiet for a moment. Then he put one of those huge hands on the back of my chair, claws just barely out, just barely denting the metal, the way he did when he was thinking. "Then we'll find out what it is," he said, "the same way we always do." And he went to suit up. I sat there with the heat bloom glowing on my screen, one small warm thing in 40 kilometers of cold, and I had the worst feeling I have ever had. Worse than any fight, because in a fight you know what's killing you. I didn't know what we were walking toward. But I had a guess. I'd had it since the broker's half-second pause. I just didn't say the word. Nobody said the word back then, out on the edge, unless they wanted to be laughed at. I'll say it now. I thought, what if it's a human? You have to understand what that word meant to us, to everyone out there then. Humans were a story. Not even a real one, a campfire one, the kind you tell to scare the young. Deathworlders, the old crews called them. From a planet so violent it shouldn't have produced anything that could think. A place where the gravity crushes, the star burns, the very air is full of slow poison. And everything that lives there spent 4 billion years learning to kill everything else that lives there. And out of all that somehow came a thing that walks upright and makes tools and looks, from a distance, almost soft. Almost. There were rules about humans. Not laws, nobody passed laws, there's no government that reaches the Tash. Just rules, the kind that pass crew to crew. Captain to captain. The kind nobody remembers learning but everybody knows. Don't take human cargo. Don't gamble with a human if you can't pay. And the big one, the one every broker, every hunter, every slaver and pirate and merchant in 9 systems knew by heart. Never hunt humans. Not because it's wrong. Out there nobody cared about wrong because it doesn't work. Because the records are full of crews that went after one human, one, alone, unarmed, easy money, and the records just stop. No wreckage, no distress call, no bodies, just a name on a board and then nothing, like the void reached up and erased them for the offense. A hunted thing runs, a hunted thing hides, a hunted thing dies. Humans, the rule said, do none of those things in the order you expect. I had heard it 100 times, and I had never once seen it tested, because no captain I'd ever served with was stupid enough or strong enough to test it. Korath was strong enough. That, it turned out, was the whole problem. We took the boarding craft in. 6 of us went. Korath, Atresh, the Varen twins, a mean quiet thing called Alu who handled breaching, and me. I shouldn't have been on a boarding party, navigators stay with the ship, but Korath wanted live sensor reads inside all that metal, where signals bounce and lie, and the only one who could read a bouncing signal in real time was me. So I went into the corpse. I have been in some bad places. The inside of the mournful is the one I still walk through in my sleep. Imagine a cathedral built by something that didn't believe in light. Corridors 100 meters tall, because the things that crewed her in the old war were big. Everything frosted with the deep cold of space, every surface furred white with frozen air. Our suit lamps cut narrow tunnels through the dark, and the dark closed up behind us like water. And it was silent, not quiet silent, no air to carry sound. We talked on the comm, whispering even though there was no reason to whisper, because something about the size of the place made you want to be small. I tracked the heat bloom. It stayed put, deep in the ship, down near what had been the carrier's core, where there'd be the most shielding, the most walls between a hiding thing and the cold. Smart, Atresh said over the comm, watching my read. Picked the warmest spot in a dead ship, picked the most defensible. This one knows how to be hunted. This one's been hunted, I said. You don't learn that the first time. Korath said nothing. He walked at the front. He had a rail spear, a thing that could punch through a hull, and he carried it loose in one hand like a walking stick. He moved through the dark like he owned it. 240 cycles will do that to a creature. He had stopped believing the dark could hold anything he couldn't kill. We went down. It took an hour to reach the core decks. An hour of falling silence and frost and my own heartbeat loud in my ears. The heat bloom got closer, brighter, resolved into detail on my screen. One body. Small, well, small for the mournful, which meant maybe Korath's size, maybe less. A little fire contained, burning something. And around it. I slowed, I stared at my read. Captain, I said, stop. He stopped. The whole party stopped. When the navigator who is afraid of everything tells you to stop, you stop. What? Korath said. The heat bloom, I said. It's not just the target and a fire. My hands were doing the math before my mouth could keep up. There's a heat gradient around the chamber, faint, patterned. I swallowed. It's not natural, it's not the ship cooling. Captain, something's been built around that chamber. In the walls, in the floor, the heat's leaking out of work, out of machinery that's running. A pause on the comm. Traps, Alu said, flat, the breacher's voice. Traps, I agreed. Or something, the whole core deck. It's not a hiding spot. I didn't have the word. We didn't have the word in my language or in the trade tongue for what I was looking at. It's a position, a prepared position. The target didn't run here to hide. The target came here to make a place to fight. And I heard, over the comm, the closest thing to hesitation I had ever heard from any of them. Then Korath laughed. Low, soft, genuinely amused. The sound he made when something turned out to be more interesting than he'd hoped. Good, he said. I was getting bored. And he started walking again. I want to stop here, just for a moment, and tell you about the last good thing. Because there was one, and I think about it more than I think about the rest. We had paused the party in a wide junction near the core, and while we waited for Korath to decide, one of the Varen twins, Issa, the younger one, the one who laughed too much, pointed her lamp up at the ceiling of that enormous dead corridor. And up there, frozen into the frost, were drawings. Old ones, made by whatever crewed the mournful in the war. Big looping shapes scratched into the metal, a whole story stretched across the ceiling that none of us could read. But you could tell it was a story. You could tell some long-dead thing had made it to be looked at. There were figures and a sun, and what might have been a victory or might have been a grief, we'll never know which. Somebody lived here, Issa said, soft over the comm. A whole everything. Lived and died in here, and nobody ever came to read their walls. We came, her sister said. We came to kill something, Issa said. That's different. Nobody answered that. We just stood there for a second, 6 killers in a dead giant's ribs, looking up at a story we'd never understand. Then Korath said move, and we moved, and that was the last good thing. Issa died 40 minutes later. So did her sister. I'll tell you how in the next part, but I wanted you to see her alive first, looking up, wondering about the dead. She was the only one of us who wondered about anything. The core chamber had one entrance. That should have told us everything. A hiding thing wants 2 exits, 3, a way to slip out the back when the hunters fill the front. This thing had built itself a room with 1 door. A hiding thing plans to leave. This one didn't. Korath stood at the threshold. The chamber beyond was the old reactor control of the Mournful, a circular room maybe 60 meters across, ringed with dead consoles taller than I am. And in the center, exactly center, was the heat bloom we'd tracked for an hour. A small fire in a metal bowl, and beside it, sitting perfectly still, watching the door. A human. I had never seen one. None of us had except Korath, and even he, I learned later, had only ever seen one dead. So let me tell you what we saw, because I logged every detail, the way I always did, and the details are the only reason I'm alive to tell you. It was small, smaller than Korath, about my height standing, maybe a little more, but heavier, dense, packed, the way a thing from a crushing world is packed. It sat with its back to a console and its legs crossed and its hands resting open on its knees, and it watched us come with 2 forward-facing eyes. Forward-facing. I noticed that first because my own eyes are on the sides of my head, like every prey thing's are, so we can see the whole world coming. Predators have forward eyes. Both eyes aim the same way at one thing so they can judge the distance to the kill. This thing had a predator's eyes in a soft, pale face, and it looked at Korath, and it did not get up, and it did not reach for a weapon, and it did not run. It smiled. I didn't know it was a smile then. I thought it was a threat display, teeth bared. It is, I learned, both of those things and neither, and humans do it when they are happy, and when they are about to do something terrible, and the most frightening thing about them is that those are frequently the same moment. You found me, the human said. Its voice came through on the suit channel. It had a translator patch on its collar, glowing soft. The voice was low and calm and almost warm. Tired, even. Like we'd kept it waiting and it had decided to forgive us. You came a long way, it said. 3 systems, big ship, 6 of you for 1 of me. It tilted its head. The broker tell you what I took. Korath stepped into the chamber. The rail spear came up off his shoulder, easy, casual, a thing that could turn me to mist held in 1 loose hand. I don't care what you took, Korath said. I'm not paid to care, I'm paid to bring you back, some of you, the valuable parts. The human nodded slowly, like that was reasonable, like they were 2 professionals discussing a job. Sure, it said, sure, that's fair. It looked past Korath at the rest of us crowded in the door. Its eyes moved over each of us, the twins, Alu, Atresh, and stopped for just a moment on me. On me, the small one, the soft one. The navigator at the back who shouldn't have been there. And it did something I have never been able to explain to anyone who wasn't there. It looked at me, the only plaything in the room, the only one whose eyes were on the sides of my head like its food back home, and its smile changed. Got gentler. Almost, and I know how this sounds, almost kind. Like it recognized me. Like out of all of us, I was the one it understood. Then it looked back at Korath, and the kindness was gone, packed away somewhere I couldn't see, and it said the thing I have never forgotten. The thing I came here to tell you. Captain, the human said, somebody should have told you the rule. Korath lowered the spear to point at it. What rule? And the human spread its open hands, slow, taking in the room, the consoles, the heat gradient I'd seen leaking through the walls, the prepared position, the one door, the whole patient, terrible architecture of a thing that had not run here to hide but had walked here to wait. You don't hunt us, the human said softly. You really, really don't. And then the lights came on. I need to stop part one there, on the lights, because what happens when the lights come on is the whole second half, and it deserves room to breathe. But I'll tell you one thing before I go, so you don't think I'm building to nothing. Of the 6 of us who walked into that chamber, 2 walked out. I was one. The lights came on, and the dead ship wasn't dead. That's the first thing I want you to understand. The mournful had been cold and black for who knows how many cycles, a corpse, a graveyard, and we'd flown into its belly believing it. We were wrong. It wasn't dead. The human had woken it up. Not all of it. It couldn't have. One person, one small soft pair of hands, can't restart a 40-kilometer war carrier. But it didn't need the whole ship. It only needed this room and the corridors leading to it, and the long, patient time it had spent here building a place to make it stand. The consoles around the chamber lit up one after another, a ring of pale light blooming in the dark, and I heard the sound through my boots before I heard it on the comm. A deep grinding hum as old machinery turned over and remembered what it was for. And the heat gradient I'd seen leaking through the walls, the patterned warmth I couldn't explain. The walls moved. Panels I'd thought were hull peeled back. Behind them, mounted in the bones of the ship, were guns. Old ones. Carrier defense guns, point defense turrets built to shred boarding craft, and the human had spent who knows how long dragging them inward, rewiring them, aiming them at the one door it had left open on purpose. The door we were standing in. Out, Korath roared, and for the first time in 19 cycles I heard something in his voice that wasn't certainty. We almost made it, some of us. The Varen twins were closest to the door. They turned to run and the guns spoke, and I won't describe what the guns did to them, because I told you in part 1 that Issa looked up at the dead crew's drawings and wondered about them, and that's how I want you to remember her, looking up, not the other thing. I'll just say it was fast. Faster than grief. One moment there were 6 of us, and then there were 4 in the air that had rushed back into this part of the ship when the human woke it. The air was full of red mist and the smell of it, and I was on the floor, because Alu the Breacher had hit me from the side and put his body between me and the guns, and that's why I'm alive and he isn't. He died on top of me. A mean, quiet thing who never said a kind word to anyone, who I'm fairly sure didn't even like me. He saw a plaything about to get cut in half and he covered it with his own back without thinking, and then he was just weight, and warmth going cold, and I had to crawl out from under him. I have spent a long time trying to understand why he did that. I've never managed it. Some debts you can't read the numbers on. When I got my eyes working again, the chamber had changed. Korath and Atresh had made it inside, past the door, into the ring of consoles, where the turrets couldn't track without firing into their own room. Smart. The 2 Drathmer were the strongest things in 9 systems, and they'd done the only thing that kept them alive, which was to close the distance, to get in among the guns where the guns were useless. Which meant now it was just them. 2 Drathmer, the deadliest hunters in the Tash. And 1 human, still sitting by its little fire which it had not moved from. Not once. Through all of it. The guns, the twins, the mist, it sat with its hands open on its knees and watched, and only now slowly did it begin to stand. It was unhurried. That's what I keep coming back to. Everything it did like it had already seen how it ended and was just walking the steps. It stood, and it was so small next to them. Korath could have picked it up in one hand. HFY was younger and even bigger, a slab of muscle and armored hide with claws like harvesting blades, and the human came up to maybe his chest. Last one ran, the human said, nodding at where the twins had been. Conversational, 2 of you left, and the little one on the floor. It glanced at me. The little one doesn't count, the little one's not a hunter, the little one just does the math. Its eyes came back to Korath. You should let the little one go home, Captain. Somebody should get to. HFY, Korath said, left. And they went for it together. I have replayed the next 90 seconds more times than any other 90 seconds of my life. I was there, I logged it, I have the suit recording, and I still don't fully believe it. Here is what I have to keep reminding myself, because it's the only thing that makes it make sense. The human was not stronger than them. It wasn't. That's the part everyone gets wrong when I tell it. They imagine some monster, some beast that overpowered 2 Drathmer with raw force. No, HFY was stronger. Korath was much stronger. If it had been a contest of strength, it would have been over in a heartbeat, and the human knew that better than anyone. So it didn't make it a contest of strength. HFY reached it first, fast, low, a killing lunge that would have ended anything in the Tash. And the human wasn't there. It had moved just enough, the smallest amount, a half step that put HFY's claws through empty air. And as HFY went past, off balance, committed, the human did something with its hands to HFY's outstretched arm. I didn't even see force in it. I saw leverage. A twist, a pull, the human's whole packed dense weight dropping at exactly the wrong moment for HFY's joint. The sound HFY's arm made is in my dreams too. HFY screamed. A Drathmer screaming. I didn't know they could. And the human was already moving past him, stepping inside his guard while he was blind with the pain, and it took something from its own belt, not a gun, not a blade, a tool, a short metal bar with a wicked point, the kind of thing you'd use to pry a panel, and it put that into the soft place under HFY's jaw where even armored hide is thin, where every species keeps its life close to the surface, and it pushed. It knew exactly where. That's the thing. It knew. It had never seen a Drathmer before, I'm almost certain of that, and in the space of one exchange it had learned where the joints bent wrong and where the hide ran thin, and it had used both, immediately, without hesitation, the way you or I would use a word we'd known all our lives. That's what they are, I understand it now, that's the death world in them. They learn you, in real time. While you're still deciding their prey, they have already finished studying you, and the studying never stops, not for a second, not even while they're sitting by a fire with their hands open looking gentle. Especially then. HFY went down. The strongest young thing I'd ever served with. Down in under 10 seconds, and the human stepped off his body before it had finished falling and turned to Korath. And it was breathing a little harder now. And that small bar in its hand was dark and dripping, and it said, "That's one." And here is where Korath bled. I told you he hadn't in 240 cycles. I told you that was the thing we held on to, the unbold. He came at the human, and he was not careless like HFY had been. He had watched. He'd seen the half-step, the leverage, the way it used your own commitment against you. So he didn't commit. He stalked. He used the spear's reach, that long, terrible weapon, keeping the human at distance where leverage meant nothing, jabbing, probing, herding it back toward the consoles where it would run out of room. And the human let itself be herded, backed up, looked for the first time, almost worried, hands coming up, eyes flicking left and right like it was finally running out of answers. I almost believed it. I was watching and I almost believed Korath had it. I should have known better. I'd seen the smile change when it looked at me. I'd heard somebody should have told you the rule. I'd watched it sit motionless while its own trap killed two of us, patient as the cold. The worried look was a lie. It was bait. It backed itself against a specific console, a specific one I realized later, looking at the recording, and when Korath drove in for the kill, certain now, the long spear leading, the human dropped straight down under the spear and slapped its open hand against the console behind it. A panel I hadn't flagged. One more thing it had wired in all its patient time, and saved for exactly this. The floor under Korath opened. Not far, half a meter. An old maintenance hatch sprung on the human's command, right where Korath's planted foot came down for the killing lunge. And the deadliest hunter in 9 systems, mid-strike, all his weight and force committed forward, put his foot down into a hole that hadn't been there a heartbeat before. He fell, just stumbled really. Just one knee buckling, one hand going out, the spear's tip dropping. For any other fight in his life, it would have been nothing, a half-second of imbalance. The human had built the whole day to own that half-second. It was inside his reach before his knee hit the floor. And I logged it, frame by frame. I've watched it 100 times. I watched this small soft thing from a crushing world take the little prying bar and open a long line across Korath's forearm. The arm holding the spear, deep, deliberate, exactly along the place where the great muscle that closed his hand ran beneath the hide. Korath's hand opened. It had to. The human had cut the thing that kept it closed. The spear fell. And Korath of the Drathmer, the Unbold, knelt on the floor of a dead ship with his own dark blood running down his arm and dripping off his claws onto the frost, and stared at it. I will never forget his face. 240 cycles, and he was looking at his own blood like he'd never seen the color before, like it belonged to someone else. Like the universe had a rule he'd believed in his bones, and the rule had just been broken in front of him, and nothing would ever be solid again. The human stood over him. It wasn't smiling now. That's the part nobody believes either. It looked tired. Sad, even. It looked the way you look when you've had to do a thing you're good at and wish you weren't. "There it is," the human said quietly, looking at the blood. "First time, isn't it? I can always tell." It crouched down to Korath's level, the bar held loose, and it spoke to him almost gently, almost like Alu's weight going cold on my back, almost like the kindness it had shown me. "You're not weak, Captain. I want you to know that. You're the strongest thing I've ever fought. If you'd been hunting anything else in this whole graveyard, you'd have won." It tilted its head. "But somebody should have told you the rule." I thought it was going to kill him. I want to be honest about what I did in that moment, because I told you at the start I was a coward and I meant it. I did not move to help him. I did not pick up a weapon. I lay there next to Alu's cooling body, the only prey-thing left alive in a room full of dead hunters, and I made myself small, and I waited to die, and I was ashamed of all of it even as I did it. But it didn't kill him. It stood up, and it looked down at Korath kneeling there bleeding, and then it looked across the room at me. At me, the little one, the one who does the math. "You," it said, "Navigator, come here." And here is the worst part, the part I'm least proud of and most honest about. I went. I got up from under my dead crewmate and I walked across that chamber on shaking legs, past the bodies, to stand in front of the thing that had just unmade everything I believed in, because it told me to and I was too frightened not to. It looked at me for a long moment. Up close, its forward-facing eyes were a strange pale color, and there was something behind them I had no word for. Not cruelty, not even anger. Weariness. A deep, deep weariness, the kind that comes from doing a thing again and again that you keep hoping you won't have to. "The broker who sent you," it said, "Kelmery smiles too much." "Yes," I said. "He sent 6 crews," the human said. "You're the 7th. He knows what I am. He's known the whole time. He keeps sending hunters out here to die because every crew that doesn't come back, he collects on the insurance and he keeps the advance and he tells himself it's not his fault. He just gave them a job, they chose to take it. Its jaw tightened. 6 crews, the twins, your friend who covered you, all of it so a smiling thing 3 systems away can keep an account balanced. It crouched again, down to my height, and that gentleness came back into its terrible face, the same gentleness from the very start, when it had looked at the only prey thing in the room and seemed to recognize me. "I'm not going to kill you," it said. "I'm not going to kill him either," a glance at Korath. "He's learned the rule now. He'll teach it better than I ever could. Nobody listens to a story, but everybody listens to a scar." Back to me. "But I need you to do something, little navigator. I need you to fly back. And I need you to tell people what you saw, not the broker, people. Every crew, every dock, every captain who will buy you a drink to hear it." "Tell them what?" I whispered. And the human smiled, the real one, the tired one, the one that meant something I'm only now old enough to understand. "Tell them we're not monsters," it said. "That's what they've got wrong. They tell the story like we're monsters out here in the dark waiting to do this." It gestured at the room, the blood, the dead. "We're not. I didn't want any of this. I ran. 3 systems I ran. I crashed my own ship into a graveyard and hid in a corpse and built a hole to live in, all so I wouldn't have to do what I just did. I begged the void to let them lose interest." Its eyes went hard and bright. "We don't hunt anybody, navigator. That's the part the rule gets backwards. The rule says never hunt humans like the danger is that we'll come for you. We won't. We just want to be left in our holes. The danger, the only danger, is what's already inside us when you corner us. We didn't grow these teeth to take. We grew them on a world that spent 4 billion years trying to kill us, and it never once succeeded, and that's the only reason we're standing here at all." It let out a long breath. "So leave us alone, not because we're strong, because we're tired, because every single one of us out here is just somebody who survived something that should have killed them, and all we want is to never have to survive anything again." It stood. It picked up Korath's fallen spear, turned it over once in its small hands, and then, "This is true, I logged it," it set it down again, gently, within Korath's reach. Gave the deadliest hunter in 9 systems his weapon back, because it had already decided the fight was over and it didn't believe in killing things that had stopped. "Go home," it said, "both of you, and tell it right." Then it walked back to its little fire and sat down, and put its open hands on its knees and watched the door, exactly the way it had been when we walked in. Like none of it had happened. Like it would wait there forever for the next crew some smiling broker sent to die, and it would be patient with them too, and it would be sad about it, and it would do it anyway because that's what survives. I flew us home. Korath didn't speak the whole way. He sat in the hold with his arm bound and stared at the wall. The unbold, with a long scar coming up white across his forearm, the first mark anything had ever left on him, and the mark a small soft prey thing had given him with a panel pry in under a minute. When we made dock, he did one thing before he left the ship. He found me at the nav station. He looked at me for a while, and then he put one huge hand on the back of my chair, claws in, just denting the metal the way he did when he was thinking, and he said, "You're not a coward, navigator." "I didn't help you," I said. "I lay down and made myself small and waited to die. I went to it when it called me like a trained thing. That's all I did." "You survived," Korath said. "It told you to, and you understood why, and you did it. That's the whole thing. That's the only thing." He was quiet a moment. "It saw you the way it saw itself. Did you notice, out of all of us, the little soft thing that just wanted to go home and not have to be brave?" His scarred hand flexed. "It was right about you. I think it was right about everything." He went to find the broker. "I won't tell you what happened to the broker. That's a different story, and it isn't mine to tell. I'll only say that the Kelmery doesn't send crews to the Mournful anymore, and that Korath never collected a bounty again, not once, in the cycles he had left. He just told the story, dock to dock, captain to captain. The unbold who bled, rolling up his sleeve to show the scar, telling crews about the patient sad thing in the dead ship's heart and what it asked him to say. Nobody listens to a story, the human had said, but everybody listens to a scar. It was right about that too. I'm old now, older than a Sith usually gets. I've told this 4 times and this is the 5th, and I think it's the last because I can feel the math of my own life coming out short the way I used to feel it on the sensors. So let me give you the ending the way it was given to me, because I've carried it 19 cycles and it's heavy, and I'd like to set it down with someone who'll keep it. People still tell the rule out on the edge. Never hunt humans. They tell it like a warning about how dangerous those creatures are, how deadly, how you'll vanish off the boards if you go near one. They've got it backwards. They always had it backwards. It was never a warning about how dangerous humans are. It was a plea about how tired they are. From the only kind of thing in the whole galaxy that learned, on a world that never stopped trying to kill it, that the deadliest creatures are not the ones that hunt. They're the ones that just want to be left alone, and have spent 4 billion years getting very, very good at making sure they are. Leave them in their holes. They've survived enough.